Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Meath Local Sports Partnership Women in Sport webinar titled She Inspires and Belongs in Sport. My name is Mary Murphy and I'm the manager of Meath Local Sports Partnership, or Meath LSP in short. Meath LSP is one of 29 LSPs around the country, all funded by Sport Ireland. Each LSP is tasked with increasing levels of participation in sport and physical activity for everyone to be more active, whether that is through play, recreational activities, and sport. The LSP network focuses our resources on a number of different target areas. One of those target areas being women in sport. When we speak about women, we speak about women and girls of all ages, all fitness abilities, all levels, and of all backgrounds. Our webinar here this evening is our public statement to the women of Meath and our commitment to continue to develop opportunities for you to have an enjoyable, lifelong investment in sport and physical activity. Hopefully our webinar here tonight will inspire you to be your best self in your sport, to achieve your full potential, whatever that may look like. We're ably assisted here tonight with our excellent MC, Lisa Clancy. Some of you will know Lisa. Lisa is a huge advocate of women in sport. She has co-designed and delivered women in sports leadership programs for over 100 female leaders in 29 national sporting organizations. And she also researched and co-produced recommendations for Sports Ireland's Women in Sport strategy. I hope you enjoy the webinar here this evening. I hope you enjoy our excellent range of speakers and that you take something away from you that will inspire you to remain in sport. I'll now hand you over to our MC, Lisa Clancy. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Mary. And it's fantastic to see Mary as a leader of Meath Local Sports Partnership and demonstrating leadership in this area. So, Céad Míle Fáilte to you all. We have people here tonight from 29 counties across Ireland, and not just from Meath. We have Tipperary, Cork, Down, and from all over the country. 75% women, but we have some 25% men, so it's good to see those in the audience tonight. And really tonight is, for you all, it's to be a bit to think about women in sport, to inspire each other. We wanted a bit of fun, and really it's to show what the Royal County has to offer. I'm a Dub myself, but I've worked with Mary and the team. Great to see their photographs there earlier, and they put a lot of work into tonight, so we hope you really enjoy it. But tonight is about you. We'd like you to be interactive on the night. We'd like you to use the hashtag #SheBelongsInSport. You can tag Meath LSP. Feel free to use the chat function. You know, put in there some messages so Rory can see where you're from and where you're tuning into tonight. And if you have any questions for our fantastic panelists that we have, put them into the Q&A box and we'll try to get to them during the evening. What else? Have some pen and paper, because there'll be some tips from all our brilliant panelists. And tonight we're going to speak with John Tracy, the CEO of Sport Ireland. We are going to talk to Nora Stapleton, the person who drives the whole area of women in sport in Sport Ireland. We're then going to have a chat with Liam Sheedy, All-Ireland Willing Manager for Tipperary, and some leadership tips from him. And then we're going to move to the most important, the Meath locals, are Rachel Flynn and Vicky Wall. And we're going to have a little chat with them in relation to their journey within sport. Then Joanna Reardon is joining us from Cork. She'll definitely entertain us. She's a fantastic advocate for disability and a total sports fanatic. We're going to have a chat with her. And then Lisa O'Dowd, the Women in Sport lead in Meath, who many of you probably know, will join us on a panel and we will answer some of your questions there. So that's the plan for tonight. We are going to move straight on. I hope you're all ready to go. And I'd like to introduce a man who needs no introduction, John Tracy, the CEO of Sport Ireland. He's been a key driver for this whole area of women in sport in his role in Sport Ireland. He also, for many, we have some teenagers in the audience, so you can go and look back at the films of John winning his silver medal in the Olympics back in 1984. And since the time we did the work on the Women in Sports strategy, who really has come behind it, and he walks the walk in this area. So I'm going to invite John to do the introduction for the whole evening. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Lisa, and nice to see so many people on the call. And I believe there's loads of Waterford people on the call as well, I might add. So, and I'm glad to say Liam Sheedy is wearing blue for the night. So he's his Waterford colours on today. So delighted to announce that to everyone tonight as well. I suppose there's a few pieces that I'll just say. I just talk personally on a couple of issues. Is that I come from a sport, which is the sport of track and field, and we call it athletics in Ireland, where men and women are treated equally, no matter where I was, America or Ireland or what have you. We celebrated achievements on the women's side just as much as the men's side, and that was the way it was. That's the way it is in the sport, and that was the way it was always in the sport. So I think that's something to be said. And I know not all sports obviously are not equally in this manner. As a father of two daughters, right, I would have to say in the teenage years, I failed miserably in terms of my children, my two daughters, in terms of getting them involved in sport. They're obviously involved in sport for as primary school children, but in secondary school they drifted away. And lo and behold, what actually happened was this: is when they got into their early 20s, the two daughters started running again. And I eventually sat down with them and said, listen, why did you get back into it? Well, they were looking at you running out the door, and there must have been something in it. And then we started. You were a good example to us. We started ourselves, and that was the way we started. They weren't pushed. They just got back into it and really enjoyed themselves. And I think there's a lesson for us all there in terms of young people. If you give them a very good example, they will be motivated and get back into it. We have a Tracy tradition on Christmas Day where everyone goes out for the Christmas morning run, and it's 5 miles, and off we go. Everyone goes off, and in the past, when daughters brought home boys or vice versa, everyone still went on the run, right? So you had to be fit to spend Christmas with us. So that's the type of family we are, and hopefully that'll be the type of family we all are. We're mad into sport. So from Sport Ireland's perspective, we always had a policy on women in sport, but in recent times we really kind of have put a women in sport group, and Lisa talked about it there, and Sarah O'Shea, we developed a women in sport policy, and that was the catalyst for a lot of work. We have a great chairperson within Sport Ireland in Cantwell, who chairs a women in sport group, is very passionate about the work. And I suppose what we have as well, we have a great team within Sport Ireland itself. And on the women in sports side, Nora Stapleton, who you'll hear from, I'll call on after this, is dynamic, hardworking, and lives it every single day. And her enthusiasm gets everyone involved in sport Ireland, and particularly keeping the women in sport side up all the time in terms of where we are. We have two ministers of sport that are very, very keen on the women in sport agenda, and Minister Martin met the women in sport group not so long ago, and we at board level are working around gender equality on boards, and we've laid a mark down for NGBs that we want everyone to have at least 30% gender equality in terms of 30% gender balance, which is probably a modest, very modest, I call it a very modest policy. And that's the national sports policy. But again, for some sports, it's going to be more difficult. But I think a lot of sports will actually do a lot better than that. And sports are doing a lot better than that, because a number of sports are well up there, over 50% already. So we'll keep that on our agenda. And obviously, we're seeing more leaders emerge in sport and on the women's side, and that's fantastic as well. And we have some fantastic examples within Sport Ireland ourselves in terms of Una May, and of course we have Sarah Keane on the Olympic Federation side, and many other CEOs that have stepped up and have taken on CEO roles of NGBs. And that again is the leadership piece. We've learned a huge amount in the last while through our research, and I'll let Nora fill you in on a lot of that. But we have a lot done, but we have a long way to go, and we're still at it, and we will still keep at it, because there should be no equality when it comes to sport, and everyone should be represented equally, whether it be at the board meeting, at board level, on the coaching front, or on the participation field. So that's where we're striving to. We won't rest until we achieve it, and we just want to make sure that everyone gets on this lifelong journey in terms of sport, and what we don't want anyone to be left behind. So I'll pass you over to Nora now, who'll go through some of the detail with you all, but nice to be with you all tonight.
Great, thank you very much, John. We all need, when we're working with women in sport and girls in sport, it's male champions and advocates we need. So thank you for that. And as John said, we now have Nora Stapleton joining us from Sport Ireland's Women in Sport and Lead. Hello, Nora.
Hi Lisa, and hi everyone else. As usual, it's fantastic to be here, and you know, we all love talking about women in sports, so yeah, excited to chat a bit more.
Great. And Nora, I suppose when we look at your journey, we're going to start off there maybe a bit. You know, you've come through international rugby player, you've played GAA, you've played soccer even before you got to this point. So maybe for some of the younger people out there, in terms of your journey from athlete meets transition to sport, just on a personal level, so they might hear a bit some advice you'd give to those people listening to us today.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess I was a typical example of somebody who loves sport. I was forever playing in the back garden. Played, you know, I had my best friend. I used to play with him and his brothers all day, every day. We used to set up teams, our parish against another parish, and we'd play in some field with cows in the corner. Like, so that was what it was like growing up in the country. But I played everything through school, and probably mainly basketball maybe would have been a big sport for me through secondary school, but obviously had football, camogie, handball, the likes, you know, the usual sports, swimming, sailing, etc. So then when I got into college, like, believe it or not, I didn't know there were international teams for women. I didn't know you could play soccer for Ireland or you could play football for Donegal. I was completely naive about all of this. I didn't know there was a rugby team. I tried to go and play rugby when I was about 10 years of age because my best friend was playing it, and I was told that girls didn't play rugby. So I might come back to that later because it's something that really stuck with me as a 10-year-old child and growing up. So then I went to college in UCD. I was lucky enough to do a sports degree there, one of the first of its kind to start coming out around the country. And I remember ringing my mum going, you know, I'm going to have to go for trials. I'd never been to trials in my life. And she was like, well, you love sport, so like, just go down and see what you think. So I went to the basketball trials and I didn't get picked. And I was a bit like, oh God, this is a bit weird. You know, having come from school where I was handy enough at all sports. And so I thought, well, I like football, so I'll go along to that, which I did. And I thought, and I love playing soccer, even though I'd not really played on too many teams. So I went along to that. And just from there, God, I quickly went to a lot of other representative teams. My first year in college played for UCD, and Donegal manager rang me after the O'Connor Cup final and said, will you come and play for Donegal? So I arrived, played one training session, and went into my first championship game the following week. So that was quite quickly flying into that. Got to play in 3 All-Ireland finals with Donegal, lost one of them, won 2 of them, so that was nice. Now, they weren't the senior finals, but it was still nice to do that with the county jersey on.
Absolutely.
And then got a scholarship for soccer when I was in UCD as well, so we had a really good team there, got to represent and play in knockout stages of UEFA Cup and do all that. And then didn't pick up rugby until I finished college and decided I'll go travel and come home and let's pick up a new sport. So that's when I started rugby, and then thought, you know what, maybe I should focus on one sport for a while and see what happens there. And that's the sport I stayed with.
Wow. So there's a lesson there, you know, the number of sports we can change through. We do need to focus at one point, but for any girl watching tonight, you know, the difference of sports you can play, it's open to us now, which is fantastic. So Nora, I'm going to move ahead then. Then you got the role in 2019 in terms of the Women's Sport Lead for Sport Ireland. And I'd love to know what your vision is in the role you're now. What's the vision you have nationally, you know?
Do you know what? There was something at the very start of this webinar that really struck with me, and that was what Mary said. And she spoke about the title of this webinar. You know, she inspires and belongs in sport. And when I actually look closely at it, that's what my vision is: that every woman and girl is inspired by sport and belongs in sport. And I think that's what the policy is there to help guide us and help direct us. And my role is to try and implement that policy and spot where we can make a difference for women and girls to feel included in sport, to feel like they have an equal opportunity in sport, and to feel like they can really thrive in sport and just to absolutely love it the same amount that I loved it, but also that everybody finds a place in sport. So whether that is you are coming from a participation point of view and you just love being active all day, every day, or you have your certain sports that you enjoy, or whether it's you want to wear a county jersey or you want to wear an Irish vest, whatever it might be, that you can pursue that and be the best that you can be within it. And I think that that's so important. And that's always been it through. I've been lucky enough to work in sport for the last 13, 14 years. And it's always about just trying to help people and bring through those types of visions.
And it's just interesting the journey you came on yourself, but within the role now, if you could just let us know some of the initiatives that you've done over the last few years, and maybe some of the ones that are to come, so people can hear what's ahead.
Yeah, certainly. So I mentioned the policy. We've got 4 key pillars in that policy. And you know, it kind of helps shape a lot of the funding as well that we might give out to our national governing bodies or to our local sports partnerships and the support that we provide. But you know, to date we've probably delivered about nearly 22 million in funding to national governing bodies since the Women in Sport programme was developed, which is back in 2005. So there's an awful lot of funding there. More recently though, over the last 2 years since I've come into the role, from a say leadership and governance point of view, we've looked quite closely at the board composition figures, or the gender diversity breakdown on boards, and we've started publishing a snapshot of those so that everybody knows what our starting point is at the minute and what are our aims for it. So it's great to see that a lot of the sports are working, as John mentioned, to reach that 30% and push beyond it as well, because as we know, women make up 50% of the population, and so that's what we're certainly striving towards. And we've developed a toolkit that helps the boards to bring more women onto them and to retain them as well. So that's from a leadership and governance point of view. On the coaching front, we've just completed a large coaching survey, and we've released a report not too long ago. And that it was a survey results from over 2,400 females responded to that survey. We learned an awful lot of information from them. We've learned how they would like to be supported. We've learned the challenges that they encounter on their coaching journey. And so now we have to look at, well, what can we put in place to support those coaches? So we're working on a coaching toolkit at the minute, which should help the national governing bodies develop their own plans for recruiting new females, for developing them, for retaining them. So that's something that's in the pipeline. We're also looking at a coaching teenage girls workshop, because we do believe that if we can support coaches to improve or to work on the coaching environment that teenage girls are in, or young girls are in, then we think that can retain them in sport. So there's a big project going on there, and we'll soon release those workshops for coaches of teenage girls to attend. So we're really excited about that. And we've also just done a lot of work on teenage girls, and we've done a bit of research around them and their attitudes towards sport. but mainly the inactive teenage girls. That's who our focus was. And we've from that, we've developed 8 key principles of what we believe will help keep girls in sport. So we're now going to run a bit of a brainstorming exercise with our hackathon tomorrow night, and we might talk about that later. But that's to develop programs that we can pilot and try out these principles. And then maybe the final point to note is around a broadcasting initiative that we have going on at the minute. So we launched the program, we invited people to apply. I thought we might get a small handful interested, but we've been blown out of the water with the number of females who just would love the opportunity to be pundits, to analyze live sport, to commentary on it, and all live events. And it's just been really exciting to see these applications, and we're currently processing those, and we're due to launch that program and hopefully a few other programs that will support women in broadcasting as well. So there's certainly a lot going on.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Well, that gives us a great overview of the national landscape. And we're going to ask you to come back on the panel for some questions later on, if that's okay, Nora.
Yeah,
and so
definitely.
Thanks so much. So we are moving from Donegal and we're moving to another part of the country. We're a national night tonight, and I'm going to call on Tipperary and Liam Sheedy to join us. If he can step on up. Hello, Liam, how are you?
I'm great.
I can still see Nora there, but anyway, I was zipping out Nora. Liam, I suppose actually funny Nora should mention about the place on the media. The first time I met you was 2009 when I was working in the GAA on the sideline. You didn't win that year, but you know you got through for the next year. Liam, your father, a coach, All-Ireland manager. You've worked in your career through sport. You've worked in sports media. Sport Ireland, you're on the board and also chair the high performance committee. So there are many questions you can ask. So I want to see some questions coming in on that Q&A, and also make sure you put into the chat. I want to see where you're coming from this evening. But Liam, I suppose maybe we just start off with, because there's so many angles would ask you questions about, but just on your own leadership journey. I'm just going to ask you the first before I ask you some leadership tips. You know, your own network and your building of your sport colleagues, and that, you know, how have they helped you on your journey throughout your sporting life?
Yeah, well, look, I think, you know, the minute you step into, you know, that leadership role, I think you're all the time looking for a fast track in terms of trying to I suppose catapult your learning, and I think that's a very, very important point, because you know, as you said, I'm coaching and you know, leading people and leading teams for a number of years now, but I'm still learning. And even a lot of today, I would have spent some of my time, you know, trying to upskill myself again. So, you know, it's that constant level of improvement and all the time. And, you know, you'd be amazed, you know, people will, if they see you as, you know, genuinely trying to improve, and if you reach out to people, you'd be amazed who'd have a cup of tea with you and who'd put the time in and asking some questions. Because, you know, if you find somebody that has a really good recipe and has things that are going really, really well, it just allows you maybe to fast track. And look, I think, you know, I think the other thing is, I suppose when I started out first and I was, you know, in a leadership role or leading teams, there could have been instances where it didn't really go the way, and it probably might have, you know, when you're, you know, sometimes it can be harder at the start and you're a little bit vulnerable and it knocks you back a lot. But actually now, when you lose, I don't see it as a loss. There's no time in life when you lose. It's actually all about what you learn. And actually some of the biggest, and God knows I've lost enough over the last number of years, but I think it's actually when you lose is when you learn the most, because you really get a chance to reflect. And as someone said to me one time, in every sinking ship, there's a hidden treasure. And there's so much to be said for that, because I think it allows you to refocus. And, you know, it's okay to fail, but if you fail forward and learn from it, I think that's really, really important. But there's been huge people have been, you know, has made a huge impact on me and my leadership style, and I suppose invested in me and supported me and answered questions that I had from time to time. And I think it's hugely beneficial. So your network, you know, I think it was Kingsley Atkins that says your network is your net worth. And I think he's so right, that if you can surround yourself with people that are very good, very smart, and have really good recipes, whether it be on leadership or dealing with teams or dealing with people, they're more than happy to help you and give you some tips, and it just can help your journey and fast track your journey somewhat. And as I said, it's a hugely enjoyable journey as well.
Okay. And like John, I suppose you've two daughters, and What are the key things you think are important for encouraging, particularly we see some dropout in teenage girls in sport, but I know you're passionate not just about hurling, but about girls' involvement in sport, particularly to your daughters. What are the key things I think are important there?
Yeah, and look, I think obviously, as you know, John is nearly out the other end now. He's got the boyfriends and all coming over for Christmas dinners. I'm not quite at that stage yet now, but I have to get across dog maybe. But look, Aisling is 22 and Gemma is 16, and I think, you know, the one thing for me as a parent is, you know, I think lockdown has probably allowed me to reset somewhat in terms of, I would say, communication with the girls has never been as strong, and probably the fun and laughter in the house has never been as strong, because really we only have ourselves to try and generate a bit of humor and a bit of laughter. So we're not quite as skilled as Joanna Reardon is at this side of the house. I mean, she's at a different level altogether. But I think a bit of fun and laughter is very, very important. And look, you know, Aisling plays camogie. She's 22. She enjoys camogie. And Gemma does the Irish dancing. I can't take any credit for that at all. I came from a mother's side. But certainly, I think, you know, as a parent, you know, if they're involved in something, you know, I remember Gemma coming back from the field when she was 6 years of age and she said, "Daddy, I got a belt in my dancing legs," and the hurley and helmet was fired to one side, and that was it. So it's not about what maybe I as a parent would like Gemma to do, it's all about what Gemma would like to do herself. And I think you've got to show, you know, I think, you know, it's not about, as I said, what's important to me, it's what's important to them. But most importantly of all, you know, I think you have to show a genuine interest in what they choose to participate in as a parent. And I think that's a hugely, hugely important point. I can tell you, you know, if you go to a hurling match, it'll always start at 3:30, but you could be at a fish and the dance is due to be on at 3 o'clock, and at 7 o'clock she still hasn't put her foot on the stage. So it's a long day, but yeah. I've got to really enjoy it. And you know what? I actually can't wait for the next dancing competition to go along and to watch Gemma dance, because all she can do at the moment is practice on her own. But I think once they're participating, you know, 3 times a week or 4 times a week now, they do a workout online where they're on, and you can hear them laughing inside in the room. And just that, you know, what sport brings them, what participating in whatever sport you want, you know, it's not all about the high performance end of things. It's actually all about the participation and the health and the energy and well-being that they get from it. And as I said, you know, I would say that sport is a big part, but I think as a parent, it's really important to show a genuine interest in what the kids take an interest in, because if you stay interested, there's a much better chance the child and the teenager will stay interested as well.
Okay, so Liam, again, we have varied coaches, board members, volunteers all on the call tonight. So maybe for the next couple of minutes, you might just give some overall leadership tips. If there's somebody listening that wants to step up in their sport, or has ambitions to be the next John Tracy or the next Liam Sheedy on a board, or wants to step up, and just some overall advice you could give, particularly to the women and girls that want to take on these positions that John referred to, you know, because as the board positions and leadership positions come up, and in coaching high performance as well, because when we did the surveys, you know, there wasn't as many women coaches at high performance level as there was male, but maybe overall, some overall leadership tips you could give us to take.
Yeah, and I think maybe I just start by saying, look, I think the first and most important thing, and something I would have struggled with at the start of my leadership journey, is believing in yourself. You know, I came from a very small family in a very small parish, and you know, I think you've got to build that up. But I think ultimately you've got to back yourself. And if you think you can in life, you can. But if you think you can't, you simply can't. So I think that belief system is really, really important. And I think then your leadership style, I think, you know, being a good communicator and looking for the good in people. And that's something I got from my late mother. I think that was a big thing for me, and trying to inspire people and trying to connect with people and how you communicate with people. And as I said, shining a light on what's going right. I think that piece is really, really important, being an authentic leader. And, you know, I would have mentioned the last time you had me on, Lisa, about lighting up a room on the way in. Rather than on the way out. And I think if you're a good communicator and you're inspiring and you're motivating, that's what you will do. And if you do that, then the people that interact with you will really have a good experience. The second thing is, like, you know, it does require hard work. You know, you've got to work at it. You've got to try and see who you can learn from. You've got to read a few books on leadership and see what you can garnish from that. And, you know, just there's the world of information available to people now. And it's something that I wouldn't have done in my early years, but I read books now. You know, I've read, the last book I've read is Jim Collins on Good to Great. Hugely enjoyable read, and again, I get my few nuggets out of that helps me improve, because you've all the time got to be seeing how you can make yourself better. But I think, you know, having that work ethic and then taking action on what you can make better is very, very important. John often talks to me about, you know, that you know, there's 168 hours in the week, and John Tracy always said you need to be able to make 2 or 3 hours where you invest in yourself, because if you as a leader if you don't have positivity, you can't give positivity. If you don't have energy, you can't give out energy. So we don't have an endless pit. You've got to make sure you replenish and build up those energy systems and those positive systems. And you can do that through reading and through exercise. It can be a walk, it can be a cycle. But I think you shouldn't underestimate the importance of investing in yourself, because only if you're on a full tank of energy that you can actually share that energy and that positivity out. I think it's a really, really important point. And look, you know, I can't underestimate, you know, the first thing that struck me on the call tonight was Mary Murphy's picture. And all she has is a big beaming smile on her face. And it just, to me, it sets the tone for every room, because, you know, laughter is magic. And sometimes in sport and in participation, it gets carried into a real serious operation. And I'm going back in training with Tip next Monday. And the most important thing in my mind is, how can we have a bit of crack? How can we have a bit of a laugh? Because for the last 12 months, we haven't really been able to do it to the same level that we would have done previously. So I think, you know, it's very hard to laugh and be in bad form at the same time. So I think that laughter is a hugely important ingredient. And the last thing I'd say is just, you know, have no regrets. You know, you'll make mistakes. Things won't always go right, but it's okay to get things wrong. You know, at the end of the day, you know, Aisling often talks about YOLO. You know, you only live once. So if you only live once, give it your best shot. And if it ends up going your way, knowing that you've given it everything, done your best, well, you can do no more. And you should be able to live with the outcome after that and the consequences that come with it. But I think, you know, really having a no regrets mindset and just giving it 100% is a great place to be. And look, if it's in high performance and that's your thing, jump into it, jump into the space. It's somewhere I love to operate. And if it's just a participation or if it's just interacting with people, there's no better feeling in life than working with someone and helping them to grow. Because I think seeing people grow is the biggest thrill I get out of leadership and management, is seeing people grow. Because my job really as a leader is to create future leaders. And if I get to create some future leaders in how I operate, then that's a job well done. Because everybody wants to do a good job is the platform that I start from. And it's my job to try and create that. So,
Aleem, how do you motivate yourself across? You have so many hats on you, you know, and keep it all going. But how do you motivate yourself personally?
Well, I think first of all, I'm very conscious of my own energy levels. So, I we'd be up on the bike or out for a walk, or last Sunday morning, myself and Aisling go out for a walk. So I think you've got to, you know, I do take more. I'm more conscious now of making sure I have an energy full. And making sure, because if I have that, that's a great starting point. And I think, you know, reading books, and, you know, you could, you know, if you wrote 20 pages, if you had a read of 20 pages a day, you'd probably go through 10 or 15 books over the course of a year, and that's not a big load on anyone. And I think what you get from that, and it's all about what interests you. As I said, I have a real interest in high performance and motivation, and, you know, understanding how other people do it, and I get a huge amount from that. And learning from others. You know, I mean, some of the people I've interacted with over the last 10, 15 years, the amount of wisdom they've given me, and it's just hugely huge. You know, I've asked people to meet me for a cup of coffee for 15 minutes, and 2 hours later we're still talking, because we just connect, and they'll give you nuggets, and they fast track my learning so quickly. So, you know, and I really enjoy it. And look, I've made more mistakes than anyone. If Tipperary were on the stock exchange every time I was involved in them, they'd probably have crashed about 5 times. But sometimes when you hit the low point, that actually encourages you and helps you to get to the higher points at the end. So, you know, have a good outlook on life, and just give it your best shot, because we only get one chance, and give it everything.
And if there was one piece of advice, we're going to have you on the panel later on, but if there's one piece of advice to particularly a young person starting off their career in sport and their sporting journey, what would that be? Yeah,
I think just, you know, probably when we're young and free, we're nearly inhibited. There's nothing troubles us, there's nothing phases us. And if we could go through life with that free spirit, you know, that's really when I know, when I'm engaging with people and they have that free spirit and they have that smile in their face, and they can just, you know, really prepare to the best of their ability, do everything to their maximum, and be the best version of themselves. Well, then the outcome actually becomes secondary, because if we're all to be measured at the end of the day on what we win or what we lose, that's an awful measurement to have, and that's not how I would like to be measured. It's all about how did you contribute versus, you know, what capacity did you operate at. And if you're operating to the best of your ability and at the top of your game, you can ask no more. Whether that means you come first or you come 10th, I could certainly live with the outcome. So I would really encourage people to you know, operation participation is where all the fun is. You know, there's still 26% of the population in Ireland that aren't active. And honestly, you know, the more we can help Nora and the journey she's on, she's doing a wonderful job. Lynn and Olive and all the others that I interact with on the Sport Ireland board, and you know, people like yourself, Lisa, run the courses. There's a huge amount going on, and what Mary's doing and Lisa. Like, there's just so much going well here, and I think it's about keeping it going and building. The momentum is there. It's just about keeping that momentum going.
And I see the good to great. I read that. That's a really good one. Any other couple of resources or podcasts you'd recommend to anybody listening today that you found useful?
Yeah, look, I mean, I have loads of books. You know, I'm in the new office here, so I actually have the bookshelf is still waiting. There's an awful draw on office stationery at the moment for every house, I'd say, around the country, because none of us are getting back into our offices. But like, there's so many good books. Jim Lower has a book called On Form that really talks about your energy and managing your energy levels, and like, it's a really good read. And Tony Robbins, you know, has Unlimited Power, and he's a really good read as well. So like, there's so much out there. And even if you watch Netflix or any of those programs, I mean, I really enjoyed Michael Jordan and just seeing how he goes. And like, you know, I mean, the two biggest role models we have in this country right now are Katie Taylor and Rachel Blackmore.
Absolutely.
I mean, what amazing role models. And don't forget John, even though I have the blue of Waterford on, Rachel Blackmore is born
Yes, Tipperary.
Yes, Killinall, the hills of Killinall. So yeah, no, as I said, it's a great time, and it's great to see role models like Rachel and like Katie, what they do.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you so much, Liam. You're going to join us on the panel later on, so get the questions in for Liam Sheedy so we can chat to him later on. So we are now coming up to 8:10. I think I'm running on time, which is a strange, or we're keeping everything going. We are going to have a very short video. If that's right, yes, because we need to find out what's going out in Meath LSP. So just a very short 1-minute video for some of the work that's going on here in Meath. So roll it there.
So the community coaching course for me was a game changer. After many years at home with my children, I decided to change careers completely. I took on the community coaching course, loved it, learned so much from first aid, safeguarding, personal development, loads of support from Meath Local Sports Partnership and national governing bodies, and then took my love of sport into the community to help others to re-engage in sport or even start sport from any age. And I then moved onwards and decided to get my own qualification, and I'm now self-employed. So yeah, I would recommend the community coaching course to anybody. It was really, really, really enjoyable.
After 30 years of working behind a desk, I decided it was time for a change in my life. I came across a community coaching role in 2018 and I took part in it. It was one of the best decisions that I ever made, and I was doing something for myself for the first time in a long time. The community coaching role also helped me with my own physical and mental well-being. That decision that I made in 2018 was one of the best decisions that I ever made, and I love coaching within my community.
It's been very rewarding to take part in so many local community programmes over the last few years, helping people of all ages to get active and have fun. Becoming a community coach was and is still the best decision I've made for myself.
So that's a little bit what's going on in Meath LSP, but we are now going to be joined by Rachel Flynn and Vicky Wall from Meath. The hometown girls are going to take the floor now, so hopefully they'll step up.
Hey, how are you?
The Royal County representatives. Hello, Vicky, and hello, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you both doing?
Great, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, brilliant.
Good to see so many people interested in talking about women in sport in Meath tonight. But I'm going to start off with Rachel first. I'm very impressed by your backdrop of weights, Rachel, behind you there. You're definitely setting the scene.
Yeah, it's the lockdown workouts. So,
So Rachel, you might tell the others, I was fascinated when talking to you earlier in the week. You started off with Meath LSP in transition year. So you might talk to us about how you got involved in that, within Meath LSP in the beginning.
Yeah, so I suppose in my involvement in sport, I've always been involved in sport and had such a sporty family as well. And then my 5th and 6th class teacher, Cork Farr, he always brought us out for physical activity every day. So from then I was kind of like, oh, I definitely want to be a PE teacher. And then I kind of switched to, I want to be physio once I got into secondary school. And then TUI came along and Meath Local Sports Partnership came in, and we had kind of a 6-week program, and we got to work with adults with an intellectual disability or a physical disability. And we just got to help them in PE or if the program that they were delivering, and at the end then we got to give our own lessons. So I remember when I was 15 or 16 delivering a basketball lesson to these people, and I just absolutely loved it. So then from there I volunteered, and I worked or did some volunteering with Meath Local Sports Partnership in wheelchair basketball and wheelchair rugby. And then I went on and I studied PE teaching in Limerick. And then in 2018, I seen there was a role for shooters, so I decided to go for that. And that's where I am with Meath Local Sports Partnership and teaching PE as well.
Right. So really, that goes back to then 16 years of age. You took a leap of faith back in those, and those courses still gone. So that's fantastic. That influenced you. And do you think that influenced you in your decision and actually deciding, look, I want to do PE as a career?
Yeah, definitely. Because before that, I was kind of like, oh, I want to go into physio. And then I suppose just the feeling I got from delivering a PE lesson to these adults with an intellectual or physical disability, then I knew from then that I definitely wanted to be a PE teacher in the future.
And look, it's so we've all seen dropout amongst particularly teenage girls, and maybe it's because they're studying for the exams. We see a big dropout in those teenage years in sport and activity. I suppose you're at the coalface of the Gaelscoil there in Meath, seeing that. So what do you think the reasons are, and what do you think some of the things you think we could do to stop that?
I think a lot of girls they're very conscious of what other people think of them. So I suppose just providing that support and providing good role models in sport to show young girls that it's great time to be in sport, and women in sport is becoming such a huge thing now, and just providing role models and opportunities, and just getting the girls to get as active as they can, and just showing them there's more benefits, and not to think so much about what people are thinking, and that this is positive for you, and that they will enjoy it so much.
And so you speak about role models, and what kind of role models do you have in mind there?
Role models do I have in mind? Just it's the everyday people that I play sport with. I play camogie with Dundee, and I'm going out to girls that are just making me laugh so much and making my mood improve, and they're role models for me in sport because they are just improving my life so much. So I think it's the people that are around you are role models for you as well.
That's great. I can even see you getting passionate talking about that. So it's lovely to see that emotion. And so definitely the fun and laughter is part of it. So thanks. So Vicky, just coming to you, we'll have to ask you for a joke because we need to get this laughter in here.
Put me on the spot now.
I'll put you on. Well, you've got a lovely giraffe there behind you there to cheer us all up,
To distract you.
So Vicky, All Ireland winner. We've a few here on the call tonight. I'll tell you, some of us who don't have one yet. I should have kept going with the score. But you know, we talk about today, it's all about she belonging in sport. It's about inspiration. And you definitely are one of the people of influence in Meath. You know, when you talk about women in sport in Meath, Vicky Wall's name comes up. So it's great for you to be with us here today. But maybe I'm interested in particularly your journey, I suppose, to that All-Ireland success. You know, it took a while. There was some, you know, disappointments on that journey. Maybe if you could just talk to us about that and how you managed that, and a few tips on resilience I think would be useful for the audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think I liked Liam's point about not being judged about your losses, because I think if we were for the first few years I was involved with the senior panel, we'd be fairly harshly judged. So yeah, like you said, it definitely wasn't an easy journey. I joined the Meath senior panel in, I think, 2015, and I was 16 going on 17, and it was definitely a transitional period. A lot of the girls had retired, the older girls that had given, they were stalwarts, you know, they'd given 10 or 12 years of their life to Meath football. So a lot of them retired at the same time, and we were definitely in a transitional period. So when I came in, I think the first 3 years we were under 3 or 4 different sets of management. You know, there was interim management, there was everything. So I think that definitely affected as well, not having a management for a couple of years. So I mean, I remember my first game against Kildare and we drew, and I think that was the best success we'd had. I think I lost every other match for the first year or two. You know, we went down from senior to intermediate, and then we went down from Division 3 to Division 2. So it definitely was a long road to get back to where we are now, to Division 2 and senior. So I think, like you say about resilience, I think the thing that kept us going was the girls themselves. You know, there was a core group of us that stuck at it. There was probably about 120 girls that had come and gone between the panel in between those first 3 years, but there was a core group of us, and that core group is still there now. So I think enjoying losing a match every single week is definitely not something I can say I did. You know, going traveling all around Ireland and losing matches isn't enjoyable. You know, you're coming home in the car. I remember Dad driving me everywhere, just me in the car, just ranting and raging about everything. So I think, no, it wasn't enjoyable in the sense that you were losing, but the team and the girls you were playing with definitely play a huge role in that.
Great. Okay. So when things are going against you, right, in sport, you know, and it can be on the management table, it can be in the sport yourself. What key tips could you give somebody to?
I think it's kind of transferable into just life. You just have to keep turning up. Like, we turned up every day to train, and we trained on a Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, and you know, the numbers did differ. Like, I'm not saying we had perfect numbers at all those trainings, but there was a core group of us that literally just turned up every day, and you know, we got the job done. We might have improved by 0.01% every single one of those trainings, but an accumulation of those 3 years of literally just turning up at every single training and turning up to every game. You know, at least we didn't forfeit any games, you know, that kind of way. We didn't not turn up to any games. We kept going. So I think that's something that definitely plays a part.
My Irish, Neil Maylefa, there was a brilliant Oglow TG Cahir that you did when you won the All-Ireland. And I think it's important we just touch on it, because it was very, you know, I think it resonated with a lot of people. But I mean, one of the downsides of being an inspiration and being up there is that we can get some negative attention and that you have to deal with, and you're very open in dealing with this. So you might maybe share that with us and some learnings you've had from that yourself, Vicky.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not Leafa anyway. There's a lot of clock that had to go into that interview. So yeah, I think Rachel touched on it as well. I think as young women, you know, we're conscious, like you're going through a transitional period in your life. And I think you say I was open about it, but I really don't think I was at all until I'd maybe coming out on the other side of it when I was comfortable to talk about it. So I think the sense that I kind of was a lot more confident and comfortable in myself, I was able to maybe briefly touch on it in the interview. But yeah, I think it was probably after my leaving cert, you know, I was stressed during my leaving cert. I was still playing a lot of sport, but I was maybe eating on the way to sport or eating straight after study, and it wasn't the best food. So like I put on a bit of weight, and you know, at the time it kind of was something, if you'd said it to me, I would have brushed it aside, said no, it wasn't conscious about it at all. But when you start hearing comments, matches, and if it's from management or that kind of stuff, and it's a reoccurring theme, I suppose it definitely does kind of eat away at you a little bit. So like that, I definitely wasn't, if you'd asked me during the time, I would have said no, brush it off, not a bother, it doesn't bother me. But you know, when you reflect on it and stuff, it definitely did have an impact on it. But I like that, again, it was my team, and I suppose the love of sport that I have that definitely made me stick with it.
Okay, so if there's any young girl out there who is worried about their weight and the comments about it, what would you say to them this evening?
Well, I think it doesn't matter, like in sport, and I've seen a few articles from nutrition, like there is no perfect body type or body shape or anything for sport or GA or anything. So I think it's the fact that like the only reason that I was reflect on it was that like I wasn't comfortable. Like there was nothing to say that I was a wrong weight or right weight. It was just that me personally, myself, wasn't comfortable, and I probably got into a bad few habits. But I think it's just once you're comfortable in yourself, I don't think it matters what everyone else has to say.
And Vicky, one last question, then I'm going to ask Rachel the same. If there's one key piece of advice to a young teenager watching tonight, what would it be overall then, the overall journey in sport? What would it be?
Yeah, I think I was trying to think of an answer to this today, and I was probably coming from a place of bias. I'm sport obsessed, and like Liam said, the high performance aspect of it. So I actually got in touch with a few of my friends and kind of asked them this type of question, and it would have been girls that I'd met originally at sport at some stage. So the main things that I would say and what they've come from it is that like sport gives you an opportunity to make friends. You know, I live with two girls that I've been playing football with since I was under 12. Like no matter what, like win, lose or draw, whatever the outcome, like sport just gives you such an opportunity to meet people and make friendships that will last a lifetime. So I think of anything else, the only advice I'd say is find a sport that you really, really enjoy, no matter what it is. If it takes you 50 times to try, find something you like, but just to find something you enjoy, and that the friendships you can make are phenomenal.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. I didn't know Vicky before I talked to her earlier the week. She's busy studying for her final exam, so it's great to take the time, but definitely is a huge inspiration for me. And I think we'll see a lot from her in the future. And we don't know what sport or guys that's going to come in, but I definitely have a key leader for the future in sport, Vicky. And before we leave Meath, might ask Rachel the same question. What piece of advice for any teenage girls watching tonight would you give, particularly the girls in Meath?
I definitely say what you put in is what you get out. So try loads of different sports, try them more than once, and give good effort into them, and you will definitely get something from it. There is sport or physical activity out there for everyone. It mightn't be GA, it might be a team sport, but there is something for all young girls to be physically active. And you're never too old. I seen there Nora said that she picked up rugby after college, and then Evelyn, the community coach, she was saying she picked it up late, and I picked pokie up when I was 20. So you're never too late to try something. So just give it a go no matter what age, and put in a good effort, and you'll get something back from it.
And actually, I'll just ask before I leave the Meath girls, Rachel and Vicky can answer this too. But again, like Liam, is there any books or any podcasts or anybody you follow that gives you inspiration? But the same question to Vicky as well. And
I'm listening to The Followers, it's called at the minute, a podcast, and that's really interesting. It's just loads of different podcasts on sport. I think one of the guys, he's doing a PhD in GCU in physical activity and well-being, so that's a great one. That's on Spotify.
Okay, great. And Vicky, any book or podcast?
One that pops to mind is probably Way of Champions. It's just a podcast I listen to here or there, but I suppose I try and make sure for my walks, my podcasts are probably not sport related.
Well, what's that one, The Way of Champions? Who's that, Vicky? Who does that?
Tim Kite or something, I think his second name is. He's an American man, so that's the one I've listened to a few times anyway.
Do you know, I'm going to give Joanne a notice now, or the panel notice, because we definitely need some females that you're all listening to and reading books as well. We put that out there for the group, you know. But listen, I just want to say a very big thank you to our Meath representation tonight, Rachel and Vicky. You're definitely doing the Royal County proud, and thank you so much for your time this evening. Okay. Nora is saying to everybody, it has to be Her Sport podcast. So we can all listen out for that. I very well recommend it. So we are moving along towards 8:30, and I do want to see more chat in the back. I want to see where you're from and where you're listening to. We are going to, Evan, or I think we are going to have a poll. If you could pull that up for anybody listening. Right, so this is to help Meath Local Sports Partnership, and we just want you to answer this question. This will help them in their planning. You know, for you to enjoy a lifelong involvement in sport and physical activity, which of the initiatives do you consider to be the most important? And there's 5 there. One is around leadership and mentoring. One is around training and education programs. Greater opportunity to participate in a wide variety of sports. Come and try, taster days for teens. Access to activities which focus on fun and non-competitive activity. So want everybody to put in their answers there, and we will chat about those answers when you go to the panel. You'll just have about 30 seconds. So put in your answers and we'll come back to the results in a few minutes. Okay. I'll just give you another 10 seconds there, and we'll be calling up Joanna Reardon next. Okay. Right, so moving on to Cork. It is like the All-Ireland here tonight. Joanna Reardon, you are going to join me for a chat.
Hey Lisa, how's it going?
How are you?
I just want to say, if you hear a bang, it's my father's cleaning the turtle tank, and it always
The turtle tank.
disaster. Yeah, I have a turtle. I got a turtle 10 years ago, and it was the day Enda Kenny got elected, so I called him Enda.
Well, Enda hasn't lasted now, so you haven't called him Leo and Michal since. I thought now maybe he could transfer his name to your Corkonian cousin there, Michal.
I kind of wanted to, but I think Enda has stuck. And it's really funny because after everything that had happened in obviously 2011, when I confronted him and I got the turtle, everyone was like, oh, did you call like it Enda because you think he's slow like a turtle? And I was like, why are you dissing my turtle? Like, my turtle is like the best turtle you can find. And anyways, long story short, about maybe 6 years later, he stuck his foot in the filter and it got cut off.
Oh, stop, you were joking.
We had to take him to the vet, and they got magic cream to regrow his foot. And my niece said to me, can we get magic cream to regrow your feet? And I was like, oh, I'm offended.
So you could relate to your turtle, So Joanne, before we're going to do a little intro on your video, but before we do that, I was talking to you earlier, I said, like, Joanne has spoken, you know, at the UN, you know, she's on the Leaders Lounge next week or this week, but you know, this is the pinnacle of her career, Meath Local Sports Partnership. I told Mary that we've both agreed, this is it, this is the so you're all very lucky to be listening to Joanne tonight. Can't wait to hear your story. She's passionate about sport, maybe more so than I am, but I think you're going to introduce a little video to put some context on what we're going to have a chat about.
Yeah. So basically this video was made by my brother Stephen, our documentary No Limbs, No Limits, which premiered in 2013 and has been seen by over 15 million people worldwide. So this is basically the little trailer we put together. So yeah, do I go full Gay Byrne and say roll it there, Colette?
Well, yeah, well, the boys are too young for us to, when I said that on the practice rounds, they didn't even know what we were talking about. But, go on, roll it there, Evan, and Oisín.
I had never seen somebody missing a hand, one hand or one leg, not a mine missing all 4 limbs. The first thing that came into my head like was, what will you ever do?
Just like you. I don't want to live in the shadow of others because I want to make my own journey in life. And I know if I'm given the chance, I can and will succeed.
I hope we got permission from your brother to show that tonight, you know, at great expense.
He's fine. He's totally fine. He's living his best life. He works in government now, so he's
so he's
he's
safe
open
and
a long
secure.
time ago.
So Joanne, you actually we had a women, well, as I said, myself, my colleague Sarah O'Shea do women's sport leadership courses, and you joined that. We did a great night there a couple of weeks ago. You're so full of energy, so full of enthusiasm, and as you make your own journey now through journalism in sport, so this is fantastic news. But look, for tonight, we've got a lot of different age groups, particularly women and girls here. So just to be interesting to hear your journey, the mindset that you have, and a few lessons for us all. Really is what I want to hear. We all want to hear.
No pressure, Lisa. Yeah, so I suppose for context in terms of sport, my achievements are so incredibly high. I got thrown out of a power chaired soccer tournament at the grand old age of 10, and I not only got banned by the FAI and UEFA, but also FIFA, because apparently you never get a red card in power chaired soccer. And I did, because I told a paralyzed kid he was useless. But for context, I was so accustomed to my siblings taking me out. I have 4 older siblings, 3 older brothers and a sister. I was so used to them taking me out and completely roughhousing me and throwing me about the place and kicking footballs at my head until I was concussed. I didn't really understand when I went to a power chaired soccer tournament why other people didn't have the same attitude as me. Now, this is going back 14 years ago, I should clarify. It is very different now. So I never understood that. And I remember I came off that day. I got sent off, and my dad said to me, firstly, he said, Joanne, I'm so grateful you have no limbs, because if I had to watch you get sent off and lead this football every day, I'd be so embarrassed. I'd have to just walk away from, like, disown you, basically. So that was basically his motto. And then I basically said I wanted to be a sports journalist. So I suppose it's a bit of a roundabout journey for me. I suppose I realized the reason why I was kicked out of that power chaired soccer is the same reason I've gone on and campaigned successfully, I suppose, for disability rights, why I'm hopefully doing a little bit okay in sports journalism, and kind of trying to pave my own path at the minute. It was that determination, that will to never give up. And I suppose having 4 older siblings, you learn that you have to pull your own weight, because they'll just move on and forget about you no matter what, which they did. They threw me into a Christmas tree and forgot about me for 3 hours because they thought it was really funny. So yeah, I suppose since then, 2011, referencing Enda Kenny earlier, my turtle, I met Enda Kenny in Mill Street. He was campaigning to be Taoiseach at that time. Mill Street was running a Fine Gael candidate for the first time, a woman as well. And my mom was like, if Joanne doesn't get to meet Enda Kenny, she'll kill me, like, because I was doing my junior cert mocks at that time. So French junior cert mock went out the window. I went down to the street. I wanted to ask him about his hair, and my dad said, cop on, you have to ask him a proper question. I didn't take time off for you to embarrass me. So I was like, right, fine, Dad. So I went off and I said to him, what are you going to do to protect people with disabilities? And he said everything in his power. Fast forward 9 months, it's budget time 2011, and they make a cut to payment to people with disabilities. And at that stage, I'd done a bit of dabbling, with writing, with TY work experience and stuff like that. And I knew I wanted to be a writer and a journalist. And Owen English in the Irish Examiner contacted me, and he said, I know you're interested in writing. Do you want to try and write a piece about this cut? And I suppose I didn't really know, like, I was 15. I hadn't a clue about activism. I hadn't a clue about disability rights. My parents had done a lot of it for me, in terms of making buildings accessible, asking people, in sporting clubs to try and get me as involved as much as possible, because that was a big thing as well when I was younger. People didn't like the fact I couldn't participate, so they kind of just ignored me and put me on the sideline, whereas I knew I had other assets. Initially I wanted to be Jose Mourinho. That obviously went out the window very quickly, because I realized I had no patience for people, especially they tried me out underage coaching, and someone was falling while they were running, and I said, "You're not running, you're falling." And then my dad was like, "We have to take her out, like, she's gonna embarrass herself again." So so that was basically what happened with Enda Kenny. I wrote a letter to the Irish Examiner detailing how the cut was going to affect not just me, but everyone like me in similar positions. The cut was overturned. I got invited to the Late Late. We were discussing technology and how technology's enhanced my life. The United Nations saw it. They asked me to go over to the UN in New York for my 16th birthday, which was very cool to go to New York at the age of 16, let alone go to the UN. I was delighted because they gave me tickets to a Yankees game, and I got to do the full-on Yankees experience. I got to go into the box where they do the player announcements. I got to see the commentary. I got to take a blade of grass. I got a baseball. You know, I got to do so many cool things. Got to see the wall of Kendi. For context, it's just a massive wall that's about 15 feet long and it's just full of sweets. So yeah, it was a really cool experience for me overall. And I suppose then from about 16 to 21, I was only talking about this recently actually with Chanel McCoy. You mentioned Leaders Lounge. We were just talking about that, and I'd kind of said to her, you know, she was talking about being thrown into a leadership position, being a businesswoman, and how she kind of didn't like it at first. And a lot of it was stuff that I could relate to, because about 16 to about 21, I felt I wasn't the right person to be asking about, you know, campaigning about policies, you know, for people with disabilities, and, you know, how my one word could impact a company that would make a decision that could affect 250,000 people. And I wasn't very comfortable with it. And I kind of shunned from it for a long time. And I was kind of frustrated because I knew I wanted a career in sports, but it wasn't happening. And, you know, my dad, he always laughs now. He was in charge of people who wanted me to come in and do talks, but he kept booking novenas. I was like, Dad, I don't want to go to another stupid novena, like. And he was like, oh, you have to, like, you never know who could be there, like, as if like Joe Canning was going to come to my novena in Mayo, you know, like that kind of thing. So I used to get very frustrated at that. And, you know, it just got to a stage where when I went to college, I said, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to learn about myself. I'm going to learn about what it is that I like. I'm going to learn how to be able to build my own foundation, you know, build my own platform, and to see what I want to do with it. And I studied criminology in UCC. And I suppose while people laugh and be like, oh, why did you transition to sports? Like, are you going to be the next Paul Kimmage? My editor always says I'm too happy to be Paul. No offense to Paul himself. He's a lovely guy. But I wanted to learn about the world. And I wanted to learn why the world was the world and why we have to accept the world as it is today. And I suppose I wanted to understand as an activist, more importantly, that if I was put on this earth to do something and to have a platform and to use my voice for people with disabilities, whatever it may be, I wanted to do it properly. And I wanted to be able to, you know, effectively leave the world a little bit in a better place. You know, I always knew as an activist, I didn't want to be it. I knew I wanted to work as an activist to become redundant, which I think is super important, you know, and it's the same in women in sports. And I suppose gradually, when I was in college, the women in sports position opened up in the Irish Times, and I saw it, and I saw it was the same thing we were all asking for. We were looking for access to pitches, access to good coaching, you know, access to employment, access to healthcare. It was all these basic things. And I understood, I was like, actually, I've been kind of okay so far in terms of activism for people with disabilities. I could help out here, you know, if possible. So I said it to Malachy in the Irish Times, and he said, sure, why not? We'll give you a go. 4 years later, I'm still there. He's still hanging on to me for some unknown reason. And, you know, I've gone on to do some incredible things that I've always really wanted to do. You know, I've gone on, as you referenced earlier, to talk to In Sport Ireland about access, you know, talk to other people across the globe. You know, Hannah Gordon of the San Francisco 49ers, they'd obviously had their Super Bowl run, and she was talking about putting in policies about encouraging more people of minorities to enter into the NFL, and how that was possible. So gradually, I suppose I learned, okay, this is a platform I'm comfortable with, and I realized sport was a microcosm of society. And if we could get sport to be the shining light and to be the beacon of society that we all know it can be, then we can use that then in essence and set the precedent for the society we want in general.
And Joanne, I mean, it's an incredible story. So it twists and turns, and will be interesting for everybody to follow where you go next. You can follow her on her social media. But do you believe, I suppose, that anybody can achieve what they really want if they really focus on it? Do you believe that what the mindset is?
Yeah, I think mindset, for me, mindset is a good 99% of it. And that's coming from someone who has no physical capabilities whatsoever. You know, I can do a couple of yoga turns, I can do boat pose, I can hold the frog pose for 8 minutes, and that's a success for me, you know. But I think really it was all down to my mentality, you know, from a pure sports point of view. I couldn't move. I've had a back operation for scoliosis, so I have a titanium rod holding me up at the minute. And I never wanted to get really back involved in exercise because I couldn't find anything that suited me. I couldn't find anything, you know, for, you know, firstly someone without limbs, but also someone who couldn't hold themselves upright for 5 minutes. And I suppose I just randomly discovered yoga. I do like a challenge, you know, which is another thing. I do like being challenged. So when my brother said to me something along the lines of, oh, it's so funny, we can just push you over whenever we want, I was like, what the hell? Like, that's a bit rude. And I was like, I'm gonna do something about this, you know. And I contacted, you know, Himalaya Yoga in Cork. And I kind of was like, hey, I have no limbs. I don't know what I can do. And he was like, oh, just because you have no limbs, you've got so many other things as well. And that kind of stuck with me as well for a while, just because I had no limbs and couldn't do the cool, downward dog or puppy pose or anything like that. I could do other stuff to help build my core strength, help my back, hips, pelvis, shoulders, whatever you may need. And I suppose gradually I learned that actually exercise wasn't something to resent. Exercise was something to just find something that, was suited to me. But that then goes back to mindset of how you have to be able to commit. You have to be able to kind of work hard, take a couple of L's along the way, a couple of losses, and just be able to kind of get through it. I interviewed Kristen Press of the women's national team last week, and it's out today. And she basically said, the thing with athletes is that you're constantly looking to the future all the time. Whereas if you look at the present moment and you look at what you're doing right now, you can find miracles. You can find something very beautiful. She's very American. I just need to highlight that. But her point basically was, if you just focus on the present moment and not worry about the future, you can start working towards what it is you want to do in the future, and how every little thing you do at this moment in time culminates into the big thing that happens at the end of the year, be it All-Ireland success or anything in between, getting that job, becoming a teacher, becoming a coach, with me, the LSP, whatever it is you want. It's the little things along the way that make it up.
And just to ask, I suppose, one of the things we haven't discussed yet this evening, but just around giving back and volunteering. I suppose for me, I'm a volunteer on the Paralympics Ireland board. That's really important to me because I believe in disabilities, but high performance and enabling that pathway for anybody with disability. And they're my inspiration in sport, those para athletes. Do you find that yourself giving back into sport helps the whole understanding of it? And is that important to you?
Definitely. I suppose, as someone who works in media now, I realized how sick of my own story I am. Not to be mean to myself, but I realized that through sport, that every day there are so many ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I suppose I made it my personal life mission, whatever you want to call it, to just start relaying those stories and start telling the stories of what's going on. You'd Vicky there, talking about her experience about being bullied, and now she's an All-Ireland champ. You'd Rachel, talking about her career changes, all the time. You've got Liam doing incredible things, admittedly breaking my heart, I will have to say. You've got Mary, you've got Nora, you've got everyone who are doing so many incredible things, and they don't want the spotlight on them. They don't want the focus to be on them. They want it to be on other people and on the other things that are going on around them. But without these leaders and without these people and volunteers behind us, we are nothing at the end of the day. And I think we do see that. And I think it's just so important to open up volunteerism, to everyone. I see it behind my own club. As I said, if you can't really kick a county final winner, it's a bit like, why are you here? But as I say to them, it's just so important to cultivate new leaders, to cultivate volunteers, media people, PRO, whatever it is that you want to do, to be able to encourage that. It's not just about kicking a county final winner. James O'Donoghue, who I'm good friends with him in Killarney Legion, he'll say it's not him kicking the ball. It's all the volunteers working behind him, who got him to where he is today, is how he's doing it and why he's doing it. So yeah, I think it is super important to give back to the community, definitely.
You're allowed to be friends with Kerry footballers.
I transferred. Sheaf Fogarty asked me to transfer on the basis that he'd mentor me, and I didn't realize that the mentorship was lifelong. So when I was handed the picture and it said "Welcome, lifelong member Joanna Reardon," I was like, "What is going on here? What's this about?" So yeah, they kept bringing me back for more, and I think they lost 6 finals in a row at one stage, and they won 1. So my parents didn't see me for about a week.
We'll see what this year brings. We'll see what this year brings.
You're being very optimistic, Lisa.
I am very optimistic. We'll support whoever's on the call, and then we might change afterwards. But Joanna, I suppose before, because we're going to bring back some of the others onto the panel then, just to summarize a few things. But really, I mean, there has been a step change. During my time, because I joined the GAA 2008, right? Very few women at a senior level there when I was director then the GAA. And over the last, 3 or 4 years, we have seen more journalists, female journalists in sport. We have seen more leaders coming forward, and we're now monitoring that and auditing it and seeing it change. But particularly on the media, have you seen that yourself, even since you've got involved, and more people, more interest, and they want to go to matches and encouraging their daughters and sons and brothers? Because it's actually 52% of the population are female in Ireland, just to point that out. So, have you seen that step change? Because there is a movement now, I feel.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. I've definitely, seen it from my own young age. My heroes, back in the day, and admittedly they still are, the likes of Micheál Murray Hurtig, Vichy Fogarty's I kind of mentioned earlier. And as Vichy even would say himself, it's just so great to hear different voices. It's just so great to not hear, admittedly, if I said to him, can I take your Munster final? He'd probably kick the crap out of me, like no messing there. But, he'd even say to himself, it's great to hear other voices, and it's great to hear people who are diverse and people who can bring a different opinion. And I think you're right. We were talking earlier about Lisa Fallon. She's an excellent hockey expert, and someone who brings a lot to the table. You've got Fiona Coughlin, in rugby. I was watching the Ireland game there at the weekend against Wales, and just the level of the way she can explain rugby that's so accessible, to a dumbass like me who's such a casual viewer, I think that is hugely, hugely important as well. And I think it is something we have to change. It's definitely something we're getting better at, absolutely. And I think we just kind of need to focus on what else can we possibly do? When people always say like, oh, like women should be involved, and absolutely she inspires in such a great webinar. We also have to talk about the different type of women that exist as well. We have to talk about, the Black women, the women of color, we have to talk about the women with disabilities, all that kind of stuff. So, while we are definitely making great groundwork, I think it is so important to culminate it in a way that encourages all women of shapes and sizes to be as involved as possible. So, yeah, no, it's a very exciting time to be around, but definitely it was great, when I was younger as well, we had Jackie Hurley, Ivani Quillen, I'm trying to think, there was Joanne Cantwell, obviously is another one, my namesake, as I like to say. Is there something great about Joanne's? It just has to be said. But yeah, it's just so great to see these female leaders, and I think for me, it's someone that I can literally point to on the TV and say, yeah, I can relate to her, more than anything.
Great. Okay. So Joelle, you stay with us now, and I'm going to ask Liam. So we have Cork, and we have Liam Tipperary, then we have Nora from Donegal, and I'm going to introduce Lisa O'Dowd, who's our Women in Sport lead in Meath, to the panel as well. So Lisa, we might actually start with you before we ask a question to the panel, just in relation to the results of the survey, and you might comment on that because you look after it. So have we got there? So what is you might give the answer, what would you think of those results?
Yes. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here this evening. Yeah, I have to say those results are really spread over all of the 5 topics that we gave you there in the poll question. And I'm kind of delighted to see that, because as a Women in Sport Development Officer with Meath Local Sports Partnership, we do kind of get quite a lot of feedback, from girls and women of all ages, looking for different varieties in sport there at the moment. And it is great to see that, women want to become more active, they want to become more leaders, they want to see different opportunities available in sport for them, whether that be taster days or, sports out there that are fun and of a non-competitive nature. But I suppose all of the points are of equal importance to me in my role. And as an LSP, we do strive to ensure that we provide equal opportunities to girls and women of all ages throughout the county of Meath. And in saying that, I suppose at the moment we have a lot of programs online due to our current restrictions. And again, they are available for girls and women of all ages and for all fitness levels, I have to say, involved in sport. But we are looking forward now to when restrictions are lifted to getting, I suppose, those programs back outside and adding a new list of programs to our schedule as well.
Brilliant. And actually, sorry, Lisa, I'm going to stay with you because there's a question in. We do have some questions, so keep them coming in. There is a question from somebody in relation to, older people, young at heart, I would call them, but older in age, and in relation to what activities are available there for maybe people who have been out the loop of sport and activities, but are in their young age of 60s and onwards. What is available for that age group?
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, I have to say we do focus quite a bit on our older adults, and again, like that, we do have a wide variety of programs available for them, and these programs will be specifically designed for their age group, their ability and their fitness level as well. So a lot of our programs would, I suppose, concentrate on overall strength, but also on joints and muscle form as well, and that all include various different cardio and strengthening and core exercises. Again, quite a few available online at the moment, which would be Mature Movers, Fitness Made Easy, And we've also got chair yoga. And again, more opportunities coming along again when restrictions are lifted. But if you want any details on any of those programs, log on to meadsports.ie.
Great, thanks a million, Lisa. So I might ask Liam, Nora, or Joanne, have you, what we've heard tonight, any comments you might want to make? There's no fighting about All Ireland finals now. We're going to stop that now, Joanne and Liam particularly. But any comments on what our speakers have said that resonated with yourselves? So Nora, Liam, or Joanne can speak up. Liam, go ahead there.
No, ladies first. Look at the night that's in it.
Right, Nora.
Come on, Nora.
Oh God, there were so many. We've jumped between everybody.
Yeah.
I suppose, like, to follow up while Lisa's just speaking there for a minute, and just to highlight again the importance of the local sports partnerships. I think they're invaluable across Ireland. I mean, in what they do and what they offer. They help hundreds of thousands of people exercise more and be more active every week. So I just think it's invaluable, and that's, without even talking about all their training programs, etc. Going through a few things, I loved listening to Joanne. I always do. I think her video always brings a tear to my eye, so I always have to have my video turned off. But I just feel, when you hear somebody talking with such passion, it just really sticks, doesn't it? And there's so many lessons to learn there about how all of us can be more inclusive in our behaviors and everything that we do, and that everybody is just viewed upon as being equal. And I think that's what sport can provide for everyone as well, and that's what we should be working hard to do. The messages that Liam shared in and around leadership, and I wrote a few down, Liam, because I was like, I need to remember this stuff as well. But the whole thing about believing in yourself, and whether that is within your own working career or your own sporting career, and it doesn't matter what age you are, but believe in yourself. And I think, Liam, you started a quote there that, if you think you can't, you won't. And it's a quote that I often refer back to as well. But it's all just, really believing that you can be, whoever you want to be. And that's important. So a couple of really, just few things. I think there's been so many messages, and love listening to Vicky and her journey as well and everything. So look, great.
Right, okay. Go on, Liam. So
I think the Mead stories, Vicky and Rachel, to hear Rachel's journey and I suppose how she's got involved and the road she's gone on, and I'm always fascinated by that. And I think it's great to see. That's what sport can bring, and sport is a habit of sucking you in, and as I said, whether it's from a participation point of view, but actually once it catches you and once it grabs you, and that's the amazing thing about it. Some people can drift and then they can come back again, and just to see Vicky's resilience, because it's not easy being in that team where sometimes results aren't going your way, and sometimes the easy thing to do can be to walk away and to not fulfill those fixtures. And it's great to see, that resilience and that sticking in there and that hanging in there, being rewarded with, such, wonderful individual, I suppose, accolades that she's received and what the team has achieved as well. So, I must say, Mead are very fortunate to have two wonderful superstars. And, they're role models you want to have, because, if we can get, the more that we hear Vicky's story and the more that we hear Rachel's story, I think that's what creates momentum and allows momentum to be built on, because they're the role models that I think, teenagers look up to.
Okay. Joanne, there's two questions in for you, actually. One, somebody's daughter who's 16-year-old wants to grow up to be like you, and what advice you would give, how you handle negativity from others. And also there's another question in, did your siblings and parents influence your love of sport? So two questions in from the audience there.
So going back to the girl who wants to be me, my parents are next door. They would say don't. She's very mean and not as chirpy as she seems all the time. No, look, obviously that's a great compliment, and I think that is, for me, one of the biggest compliments I can possibly get. Absolutely. In terms of dealing with negativity, look, I suppose I'm very fortunate so far that I haven't had to experience it a lot. I got my first hate mail 3 years ago. My brother framed it and gave it to me because he thought it was really funny. And I got my second piece of hate mail 2 weeks ago. So it was all very exciting. And apparently I upset Galway girls was in the email. So if anyone's on from Galway, I do apologise in advance if I upset you. Look, I suppose I don't care. I'm able to laugh it off. I have older siblings who, even though our relationship is very, don't look at me or I'll kill you, and where's the body, I'll hide it with you. It's one extreme to the next. I know they'd also, protect me as well if anything actually bad did come through the door, but they do get a good kick out of it as well, because they enjoy saying, you wanted equality, you have to get equality with your hate as well, which I don't really think is what I'm asking for. But no, look, I think in terms of dealing with it, I think you have to realize that it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of the other person who's sending it. To kind of, I suppose the ability to back yourself, I think is so important, especially nowadays, and especially as a woman. I think it is, you just have to be able to find that kind of backbone in you to just go headstrong and be like, look, I'm going to plow through no matter what and do the best that I could possibly do, and see where that takes me. Sometimes I do think you need to put on the, excuse the Richard Blackmore reference, the blinkers, and just be able to put the head down and jump the hurdles that are necessary. So that's just the way I kind of would roll anyways, and I generally wouldn't care. But I think if something is affecting you, talk about it. Absolutely talk about it. Is so important with someone you trust and as a confidant, and just express yourself. The second one about my family, my parents. Yeah, so my sister is an All-Ireland running champion, funnily enough, and so is my older brother Stephen. My second eldest brother Denny played GA. He won a county title, a junior county title, so it's not good enough in my eyes. And Dennis plays Aussie Rules over in Sweden, funnily enough. So they've always kind of influenced me. They always brought me around to any kick around that was going on. The gap between myself and Dennis, who's the eldest, is 15 years, and he wasn't at all too embarrassed to bring his limbless sister and put her into goals and, as I said, kick footballs at me. So they definitely brought it out of me when I was younger, and they just encouraged me to kind of watch anything and do what I can. I still laugh to this day. My brother Denny, I was like 18, and he texted me and he said, Sky Sports are looking for a new boxing ring announcer, do you think you could do it? I was like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah, you just have to send a video of yourself like announcing a boxing match. I was like, forget it, Denny. And he was like, come here, girl, you said you could do anything, no limits, no limits. I was like, all right, Denny, seriously.
Very good. I have a very soft spot for women in boxing. Worked on them with their women's boxing strategy, and the fantastic Kelly Harrington and all those up and coming boxers under Bernard Dunn. So looking forward to supporting them all going into the future. So maybe you could do that, Joanne. You definitely could,
I don't think I have the tone. I don't have
I have a couple of questions coming in now as well. So thanks for that. Nora, I might pass this one to you. There's a question in about, and it's an interesting one, the level of cooperation between the North and South in Ireland in terms of women in sport and disabilities in any area. So you might take that one.
I can probably only talk about it from my own involvement. Like, I've been on a few consultations with them, with Sport and I at the minute, because they're developing, I don't know if it's an action plan or strategy for women in sport. So they're quite keen to see what we've been doing, and obviously there's a few of the national governing bodies who are an all-Ireland national governing body, so it's important that there's a link there between Sport Ireland and Sport Northern Ireland. It tends to be, like, from a high performance point of view, you have high performance directors that would obviously be closely in conversation, and various participation directors, etc. But from a women in sport point of view, they have reached out, and as I said, I've been involved in those consultations as well.
Great. Okay. I know that yourself and Lisa, so I'll bring Lisa in as well. You have a hackathon coming up, so it might be a good time to mention that. I know it's done in partnership. This is an example of a partnership between an LSP. So either Lisa or Nora, who wants to tell everybody what's going on? But the pair of you, it's a dual act.
I can start, I guess. So Hackathon is an online brainstorming exercise, and we're doing it in response to our Girls Get Active report, where we obviously came up with, or the report told us the principles that we should include in our sports programs in order to get more girls active. So in order to design those programs, we want to host a public consultation nearly, or to bring the public with us and to encourage them to help us develop these ideas and ways to get girls active. And not only, it's everything from teenage girls through to their parents, their coaches, etc., but We also have the development officers from a range of the local sports partnerships involved, who are, you know, all day, every day working on the ground for teenage girls and have their own ideas as well. So it's really important that we want to hear them. And the idea of a hackathon is it's a bit of a facilitated process which helps people make their ideas clearer and workable, I guess. And so that's what we're doing this weekend. It starts off tomorrow evening, goes through Saturday and Sunday. So it's just 3 webinars in total, which are 2 hours long. So it's not that much out of people's time, but you know, we can reap the rewards from this if we really come up with some excellent ideas that have never been tried and tested before to get more teenage girls active. So we're not talking about our traditional sports structures here, and we're talking about the activities in sports that we never get to try, or we didn't get to try as teenagers. But yeah, Lisa's involved. Lisa helps me out on one of our working groups as well for women in sport, which is brilliant. And she's doing great stuff in Meath, but it's brilliant to have the likes of her involved in it as well.
And Lisa, then if anybody listening wants to get involved with that, how do they sign up under Meath Local Sports Partnership?
Yes, we'd love to see teenagers and young girls getting involved in this Sport Ireland Hackathon. Again, as Nora said, it's actually taking place over this weekend. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been actually talking to a lot of younger girls, both in clubs and schools. And I can really see a huge interest in them as far as, I suppose, seeing new and maybe different and maybe more creative programs that could be available for them. So I think this is a great opportunity for girls to be able to solve a problem or solve this challenge that we're experiencing with the disengagement, I suppose, of adolescent and teenage girls in sport. But to get involved, if you log on to our website, again, it's meathsports.ie. It's not too late to enter, so we'd be delighted to have you. And I think we do have a good few groups coming in from Meath, so I think it would be fantastic if more groups got involved and we can kind of brainstorm together to create those new programs.
Okay, thank you. So any last comments or any last inspiring words from our panelists? Feel free to speak before we wrap up. We've questions coming in. I can't get to them all, but
I'll jump in that question about the shorts, which I think is really, really important. And one thing that I would suggest is I'm not sure how active the girls are in having that conversation with the club. And you'd be surprised, like teenage girls, they want their voice to be heard and they want to be respected. And so I'd certainly ask the girls, you know, do they want to be the ones to pit a small working group together, or maybe 3 of them, to reach out to the club, ask for a meeting with the club to discuss the kit, where they can explain the reasons why they don't want to wear white shorts. They can give examples from other clubs around Ireland who have also changed the colour of their shorts for that very reason. And I think when you have the teenage girls who are talking about it, it's very hard to say no, rather than adults trying to have the conversation for them. So I'd certainly do that as one action. Perhaps it's been tried, but if it hasn't, that's definitely an option for them.
And this is a time, you know, we're talking about the colour of shorts, and teenage girls don't want to have the white shorts, obviously, when they're at sports, going through their cycling. And this is a time where you have a voice. And Joanne, this is a good example, actually. You can help and follow through that club who put in the query there. You know, girls have a voice too, and it's time to use it. And whether it's at the hackathon, to that, but in their own club. And if they come to have, everybody can have a voice and make change, the right one. So any other, before we leave, Liam, Joanne, Rachel, anybody at all before we go? Because we've had a whistle-stop tour to many different topics, so it's been great. It's great to feel the energy. Anybody else, last words of inspiration?
I just like to compliment Mary and Lisa and all of the team in Meath LSP. I think the work that's going on in this area, and you know, I think Nora's right. You know, she inspires and belongs in sport is a wonderful heading. As I said, as a father of 2 teenage daughters, I think, you know, there's real momentum in this space, which is fantastic to see. You know, and there's a huge amount of great work going on, and there's role models popping up left, right, and centre. So I would just say that, you know, it's a journey that's moving really at pace in the right direction. So, you know, just to compliment everyone, it's an honour and privilege to be along tonight. And as I say, just best of luck to Meath LSPs and to all the LSPs around the country. You know, the more we can get people participating, because I'll tell you, the longer you stay in a club or connected to your sport or being active like that, you know, the more fulfilling your life will be, the more friends you'll have, and the greater environment you'll be around, which is a huge positive in the current world that we're now living in. So just to say well done to everyone. Pleasure to be involved.
Great, thanks, Liam. And anyone else then before we wrap up and I hand over to the boss?
Great. I might just add actually that I believe that you know, sports is really for everybody, and all women of all ages and all fitness levels and all abilities. And I think that we all kind of have I suppose a responsibility in sport to help others you know, become more involved, and to help others I suppose to inspire others to become involved in sport. And I think, I suppose, if everyone that's looking in this evening even reaches out and inspires somebody to get involved in sport, maybe they haven't been taking part in sport in the last, you know, 6 months or whatever it is, and for whatever reason, because we're all quite busy at the moment, we all lead very busy lives. But I think it is important to find that 30 minutes every single day if we can. And if we can inspire other people to do that, I think we would actually make a huge impact for women in sport.
Right. Thank you, Lisa. And I do think each one of those panelists are inspirational. And every single person watching this, as you said, get your daughter, niece, you can start at any age, your grandmother, all out doing something active. All around Meath, of course, when we open up, everybody's invited to Meath, all those counties tonight. For me, it's been a privilege, and to get to know a few people I didn't know, Rachel and Vicky, but everybody else, thank you so much for your time. It's an area I'm passionate about. I think we're going to see more and more female leaders stepping up in positions, in leadership, in high performance role, in coaching. And that 52% will change. So the guys better look out. But we can't do it without the males. It's all a joint effort. So that's it from me this evening. I'm going to hand you back to the leader of Meath Local Sports Partnership to close up. Mary Murphy, it's over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. Thoroughly enjoyable evening. You, as an MC, absolutely excellent, really engaging. Really loved listening to all the speakers, welcoming everyone into the Royal County from all around the country. Delighted that we had John Tracy on the call, CEO of Sport Ireland, proud Waterford man. We take him in Wexford too, but you know, he's proud Waterford. Nora Stapleton, Liam Sheedy, great Tipperary man there, and he commented on my smile earlier on. I just hope with my, I suppose, my home county of Wexford, I certainly hope that as a Wexford woman, in last weekend in August, that we'll be smiling and that Liam will be every bit as gracious, handing over, or sorry, borrowing the Liam McCarthy from Limerick and handing it over to Limerick. And also really massive thanks to Joanne, to Vicky, to Rachel, hugely inspiring people. Great to hear their journeys and how they've been so resilient without even probably understanding what the word resilience is, and how they continue to be ambassadors for themselves and for their own sports. Lisa O'Dowd, our excellent Women in Sport officer within Meath LSP, is there, as you can see, very knowledgeable, very welcoming for new ideas. So if you're sitting here tonight and you're thinking, I'd love to get involved, I have an idea or an activity that I'd really like to further develop or explore, please contact us in Meath Local Sports Partnership. Or indeed, if you're sitting there from another county, contact your local sports partnership in that county. The staff have been tremendous in lending their support to pulling this webinar together. So massive thanks to them. And also to our two technical directors, Oisin Foley, a proud Meath man working in Sport Ireland, and Evan McDermott. Evan is on college placement with us from the Technical University there in Dublin, and both of those guys have been brilliant. So if you've enjoyed, I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard here tonight. I hope you'll reach out to contact us within the LSP, no matter what age you are, no matter what your background is. Check out our website, meathsports.ie. Follow us on our social media pages, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Sign up for our e-sign, sign up for our programs. Just keep informed. So I can't say any more about our MC. Lisa was brilliant. And I thoroughly enjoyed the evening. I hope you enjoyed the webinar as well. So thank you and good evening.
To whom it may concern, what I'm doing here is not for you. Not for your judgment or your appraisal. Not for your assessment or your arousal. No boy I know has ever been told he shouldn't play, couldn't play. I am no longer interested in shouldn'ts or couldn'ts or rules not written for me. I am not worried about getting too big or too strong or too fast or too full of myself. I do not agree that playing like a man is a compliment. What I'm doing here is not for you. Movement is a movement. My effort, my ambition, my desire for me. For every woman, every girl who dares to see herself as something more than a body to be rated, a score to be kept. When I play, I keep my own score. When I play, I know who I am. When I play, I forget how it feels to be boxed in, to be boxed out. When I play, I feel no shame. When I play, I remember how it feels to be free. This court, this field, this world, too small to hold me. When I play, I know I won't be undone. I won't be unsung. My humility, my humanity, my movement, a movement. This is not the end of my dream. This is where I wake up.